After giving birth, the nurse whispered, "They want you gone." "Who?" I asked. "Your in-laws. They said you're unfit." I laughed until I saw the email my husband sent. Custody filed. She's mentally unstable. I looked at my scar, and minutes later, I packed my bag. Me, 35 female. She said what? Lucian, 38 male. Husband shrugs. She's just concerned. You've been acting different. Me, I gave birth 3 days ago. My hormones are all over the place. Lucian, that's exactly what she means. You're not yourself. Nurse, softly, your in-laws, they don't think you're fit. They want you gone. Me, laughs, weakly, what? Nurse, I overheard them. Your husband sent something to a lawyer. Later, I found the email, custody filed. She's mentally unstable. We'll submit journal excerpts. I didn't expect to fall apart in a hospital room in Raleigh, North Carolina. But that's exactly what happened. I'd just given birth to our daughter, Isla. It had been a difficult pregnancy. My blood pressure was high from the second trimester, I couldn't sleep for more than 2 hours at a time, and I'd developed gestational diabetes by the end. The labor was long, 36 grueling hours ending in an emergency C-section that left me trembling and stitched up like a worn-out doll. The recovery room smelled like antiseptic and warm broth. Lucian hadn't even stayed the night after I delivered. He said he had a lot on his mind. I didn't push back. I figured he was overwhelmed, maybe scared. We'd been married 5 years. I met Lucian when I moved to North Carolina from New Jersey to try something different. He was a quiet, analytical man. Precise. Methodical. I liked that about him. After years of dating emotionally unavailable artists and musicians, Lucian felt like a calm port in a storm. He wasn't charming in the usual sense, but he was dependable. That was enough back then. His family, however, was another story. From the moment I met Beatrice, his mother, I knew I'd never be what she wanted. I was too outspoken, too informal, too northern. She referred to me as that city girl for the first 6 months we dated. Lucian's father, Richard, was no warmer. At our wedding, he gave a toast about the importance of marrying within one's kind. Everyone laughed. I didn't. Still, I was naive. I thought if I smiled enough, helped clean enough, brought over banana bread for Sunday brunches, I'd eventually win them over. I never did. Beatrice made constant comments about my job, photography. So, like, pictures on Etsy, my body, you've always had such wide hips, and even my mental health. You journal too much, she once said, thumbing through my notebook when she thought I wasn't looking. It's a little self-obsessed, don't you think? When I got pregnant, they got more involved. Beatrice showed up uninvited to OB appointments. She insisted we redecorate the nursery in muted colors for the baby's temperament. Lucian didn't defend me once. It's just easier to let her do what she wants, he'd say. And I let it go. Every time. I chalked it up to tradition. Southern culture. Boundaries were different, I told myself. But the nurse, her name was Myra, changed everything. It was the second night after Isla was born. Lucian was sitting on the plastic recliner, scrolling through his phone. Myra came in to check my vitals, then leaned close as she adjusted my four. They want you gone, she whispered, barely audible. I blinked at her, groggy and sore. Who? I asked. She didn't make eye contact. Your in-laws. I overheard them in the hallway. Said you're unfit. That they have legal steps in motion. I chuckled. My throat was dry. Beatrice doesn't like me, that's no secret. But legal steps? That's a bit much, don't you think? She looked at me for a long moment. Then said nothing, just nodded politely and left. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying it over and over. Legal steps. Unfit. What did she hear? Lucian was unusually quiet the next morning. His laptop was open on the side table. I wasn't snooping, not exactly. I just glanced. And then I saw it. An email to a law office, timestamped 2 days before I gave birth. Subject: custody filed. She's mentally unstable. The message said, "We have evidence, journals, her behavior during pregnancy, and supporting witnesses." My breath caught in my throat. My scar burned beneath the hospital gown. I didn't say anything at first. Just stared. When Lucian came back from the vending machine, I asked, calmly, "What is this?" He looked at the screen, then at me. "I was just being cautious," he said. "In case something happened." "In case I did something, you mean?" He didn't respond. That was my answer. I called Mia, my older sister. We hadn't been close in years. She had 2 kids, a big career in New Jersey, and we mostly sent holiday cards and liked each other's Facebook posts. But when she picked up and heard my voice, she said, "I'm booking a flight." That night, I asked for discharge papers. The nurse didn't question me. She helped me walk to the elevator. I carried Isla in her car seat with one hand, wheeling my suitcase with the other. Lucian tried to block the door. I handed him the discharge form. He moved aside. "You're making a mistake," he said. I didn't look back. I stayed at Mia's townhouse in Princeton. She turned her home office into a nursery overnight. She stocked the fridge with soup and snacks I liked, hired a postpartum doula for a few days, and listened, truly listened. I started writing everything down. Every conversation. Every email. Every voicemail from Beatrice. A week later, Lucian filed for emergency custody. He claimed I had postpartum psychosis. Said I was paranoid. Claimed I'd threatened the baby's safety by leaving the hospital without consent. He attached screenshots of my journal entries. He even had a note from his mother saying I had violent tendencies. I was required to attend a psychological evaluation. I passed. Of course I passed. The doctor even said, "You're showing signs of trauma, not instability." But it didn't stop them. We went to court. And I found out how hard it is to be believed as a new mother. Every tear I cried was evidence. Every anxious phone call I made to Mia was erratic behavior. Beatrice took the stand. Said I screamed at her during a dinner once. That I shoved Lucian. I hadn't. I dropped a plate and asked her to stop criticizing me. That was it. Lucian said he was scared for the baby. Not once did he express concern for me. For his wife. For the woman who just brought his daughter into the world. I was painted as unhinged. Unfit. And I stood there, in my borrowed black blazer, shaking, but never backing down. I sat in that courtroom clutching the armrest of my chair so tightly that my knuckles turned white. Every word coming from Lucian's mouth felt like a stranger's tongue. There was a cold, rehearsed tone to everything he said. He never looked at me. Not once. Not when he described me as erratic or withdrawn, not even when he told the judge he was terrified I'd do something to Isla out of stress. The lawyer he hired was polished, expensive-looking. She used words like patterns of behavior and emotional volatility. I listened to her turn sleepless nights and tearful journal entries into pathology. My attorney was a friend of Mia's, divorce and family law in Manhattan. Not cheap, but razor sharp. She asked one question that pierced through all the noise: has she ever harmed her child? The answer was no. There were no hospital reports. No police reports. No incident logs. Just a lot of assumptions and opinions. A lot of fear dressed up as fact. Still, that didn't stop the court from hesitating. I had to submit to weekly check-ins with a court-appointed counselor. I had to provide character references, 3 of them. Mia. My OBGYN. And the nurse, Myra, who risked her job to send in a letter saying she saw how Lucian's family spoke about me in that hospital hallway. That letter, it changed something. The judge took a long time to deliberate. I spent weeks on edge, afraid to leave Isla's side even for a nap. Afraid Lucian would find some way to spin my exhaustion into evidence. I kept everything, time-stamped feeding logs, screenshots of every text. I lived like I was on trial because, in a way, I was. Through it all, Mia kept me afloat. She didn't try to fix anything. She just sat with me in the darkness. One night, Isla wouldn't stop crying. I hadn't slept in over 24 hours. I sat on the nursery floor, back against the wall, rocking her slowly while tears streamed down my face. Not the big, cinematic sobs, the quiet ones. The kind that sneak up and spill over while you're too tired to stop them. Mia found me there. She didn't say a word. Just took Isla from my arms, hummed a lullaby, and kissed the top of my head. "I see you," she whispered. "You're doing everything right." It was the first time I believed it. Lucian started texting again. Not about Isla, about himself. He wanted to talk. Said he missed how things used to be. Asked if we could find a middle ground. I didn't reply. 2 days later, I received a motion from his attorney, a request for shared custody. He'd dropped the claim that I was a danger. The new narrative was that I was alienating him from his daughter. That I was controlling access. That he just wanted to be a father. The court still required supervised visits. Once a week, at a neutral visitation center. Isla was 6 months old the first time he held her again. She cried the entire time. She didn't recognize him. He looked confused, maybe even hurt. The visitation supervisor told me afterward, he said he didn't expect her to act like a stranger. "She is," I said. To her, he is. I wasn't being cruel. I wasn't even angry in that moment. Just tired. Profoundly tired of being painted as something I wasn't. My therapist, Dr. Feldman, helped me unravel the whole mess in sessions that felt more like detective work than therapy. He told me something one day that still echoes in my mind: people like your husband don't need to scream to be controlling. They rewrite the story while you're still living it. Gaslighting isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's as quiet as a deleted text or a cold shoulder. That stuck with me. Because Lucian never raised his voice. He never hit me. Never slammed doors. He was always calm, always reasonable. But when I cried, I was unstable. When I questioned him, I was irrational. He eroded me by inches, until I was too tired to call it what it was. Torment doesn't always come in bruises. Sometimes it comes in legal filings and polite emails. Beatrice tried to reach out once. She sent a card. It had a stock image of a baby on the front and inside, just one line: "We hope you're getting the help you need." No signature. Just "we." I threw it out. Later, Lucian's lawyer requested to remove supervised visitation, claiming there was no longer a need. My lawyer countered. We submitted Myra's statement again. We submitted evidence of Lucian's initial custody request, how quick he was to claim I was a threat. The judge agreed with us. Supervised visitation would remain until Isla turned 2. Lucian didn't fight it. That silence was the most telling part. He didn't fight for her. Not really. He fought for control. For narrative. For appearances. Once it became clear he couldn't frame me as the problem, he lost interest. It was the same apathy that sat in our house during my pregnancy, watching me unravel while he focused on work and code and keeping up the image of the perfect family. He didn't want a child. He wanted a compliant wife. And when he couldn't have both, he tried to erase me. But I was still here. Scarred, but still here. Weeks passed, then months. The visitation schedule became routine. Every Saturday morning, I packed up Isla's diaper bag and drove her to the neutral center. She never stopped crying when she saw him, not once. At first, I thought it was the environment, the unfamiliar room, the staff wearing name tags and smiles that never reached their eyes. But as time wore on, I began to see it for what it was. She knew. Babies don't speak, but they feel everything. And Isla felt the stiffness in his arms. The detachment in his voice. Lucian tried, I guess. He'd show up with little toys, try to mimic the soft voice I used at home, offer her snacks she was too young to eat. But it was always performative. Checked boxes. He never asked about her milestones. Never asked what she was learning, or if she had favorite songs or books. He never asked how I was doing either. Not once. Eventually, the staff started commenting. Subtly at first. One of the visitation supervisors, a woman named Janice who'd been working family cases for over a decade, told me, "We see this more than you'd think. When a man loses control of the narrative, he either disappears or tries to rewrite it again in a new way." I didn't need to ask which one Lucian was doing. At home, things were slowly settling. Mia returned to work, and I picked up teaching again, private lessons for beginners, online workshops. I started photographing families in local parks, capturing quiet moments between parents and children, the very moments I'd fought so hard to protect for myself. There was healing in that. Small, deliberate healing. Mia watched Isla on the weekends when I worked. She never hesitated. She even said once, as she rocked Isla to sleep, "I think she's the reason we came back into each other's lives." And I knew exactly what she meant. My relationship with Mia had once been strained. A long-standing silence born from different paths and unresolved wounds between us. But in that townhouse, in those long nights with spit up on our shirts and lullabies on repeat, we restitched our sisterhood thread by thread. Still, I carried the weight. Not just the trauma, but the awareness that I'd missed so many signs. I thought back to the first time Lucian made me doubt myself. It wasn't anything dramatic. It was subtle, like the time I expressed frustration about something at work, and he told me, "You're just being sensitive." Or when I cried after a long day, and he quietly left the room. The truth is, he had been chipping away at me for years. The pregnancy just made it impossible to ignore. And now, in the aftermath, I was learning how to rebuild, not just my life, but my self-trust. My counselor had me write letters to Lucian that I'd never send. At first, they were angry. Raw. Pages of accusations and how dare yous. But over time, they softened, not out of forgiveness, but clarity. "You didn't want a partner," I wrote in one. "You wanted someone to orbit around you quietly. And when I started shining on my own, you called it instability. Another time, you wanted to be a father in theory, not in practice. And when parenting required sacrifice, you called it inconvenience." The letters sat in a drawer, untouched but unforgotten. One afternoon, a packet arrived from his lawyer. I opened it slowly, expecting more legal forms, maybe another motion. But it was different. It was a formal request to relinquish shared legal custody. No explanation. No personal note. Just signatures. Lucian had given up. My lawyer said it was rare for a parent to do this without a fight unless they were trying to avoid a deeper investigation. That planted a seed in my head. Had he done something else? Was there more to this story? But I let the suspicion fade. It didn't matter. What mattered was what came next. I signed. For a while, I didn't tell anyone. Not even Mia. I just sat with it. Some nights I'd wake up thinking I heard Isla crying, only to find her sound asleep. My heart would be pounding, my body clenched like it had been bracing for something. That feeling, that readiness for battle, it took months to fade. Even now, I carry it in the corners of my muscles. In my posture. In the way I lock the door twice before bed. But little things started changing. I found myself laughing again. Genuinely. Not the brittle, polite kind of laugh I used to use around Lucian and his family. I danced around the living room with Isla on my hip. I stopped reading the emails he sent after the custody was finalized. Most of them were short, hollow updates about his job or articles he thought I might find helpful. They went unread. I had no room for that voice anymore. Instead, I began pouring myself into a photo project. I called it Mothers in Light. I wanted to document the resilience of women who had clawed their way out of silent battles, single moms, caretakers, survivors. I posted an open call online and received hundreds of responses within days. I met women who had endured emotional torment, financial abandonment, legal intimidation, all masked behind respectable exes. Their stories didn't shock me. They comforted me. They reminded me I wasn't alone. And for the first time in a long time, I stopped feeling like a character in someone else's narrative. I became the author again. It took nearly a year to feel safe again. Not just physically, I never thought Lucian would try to harm me in that way, but emotionally, mentally. That feeling of waiting for the next hit, the next passive-aggressive text, the next twist in the story he tried so hard to author. But nothing came. And in that silence, I healed. I focused on Isla. On learning the rhythms of motherhood without someone looking over my shoulder and calling my instincts emotional. I relearned what trust felt like, starting with trusting myself. That was the hardest part. The Mothers in Light project became more than just photos. It turned into workshops, small community gatherings, a gallery exhibit in a co-op space in downtown Montclair. I printed excerpts from the women's stories and mounted them beside the portraits. Some were survivors of controlling marriages like mine. Others were widows, or women who had chosen single motherhood on their own terms. Every one of them had something to say. Every one of them reminded me that survival wasn't the end, it was the beginning. A journalist from a local magazine did a feature on the exhibit. The piece went a little viral, nothing huge, but enough to reach places I hadn't expected. Places like Raleigh. And then, out of nowhere, Beatrice showed up at the gallery. I saw her before she saw me. She looked smaller than I remembered. Older. Her eyes scanned the portraits, narrowed slightly at the stories. She stopped at one with the caption, "He said I was crazy. But I was just waking up." It wasn't mine, but I saw her flinch. She turned, and our eyes met. She walked over slowly, like someone approaching a cliff's edge. "I didn't know," she said. "I thought you were being dramatic." I didn't respond. She gestured around at the photos, the quotes, the women. "He told us you were unstable. He said you were trying to ruin his life." Still, I said nothing. She swallowed. "He hasn't come around since the visitation ended. We don't hear from him much anymore." That surprised me, but not entirely. Lucian never did well without someone orbiting him. Beatrice looked at me, and for the first time I saw something resembling honesty. "I was wrong," she said. "I didn't say I forgive you. I didn't say thank you. Instead, I said, your son tried to take my child away from me 2 days after I gave birth. You helped him. There's no oops in that." She nodded, silent. Then she did something I didn't expect. She walked to Isla's photo, which was displayed in the front corner of the exhibit. It was a candid shot, Isla asleep in my arms, forehead resting against mine, light streaming through the window. Beatrice just looked at it. Then left. That was it. No apology letter. No follow-up. Just silence. And it was enough. 2 months later, I got an email from an HR manager at a company called Elm Technologies. They were doing a routine background check for a potential hire, Lucian. Apparently, someone had forwarded them the article from the magazine, and they were doing due diligence on his past legal disputes. The email was courteous. "We understand you may have been involved in a custody dispute with Mr. Lucian Monroe. We are verifying character references. Anything you're comfortable disclosing will remain confidential." I didn't respond right away. Then I thought about it. For years, I had been made small so that he could be big. I'd been quiet so he could be reasonable. I'd swallowed my truth so he could present his as law. And now, finally, someone was asking for my version. So I wrote it. I didn't embellish. I didn't rant. I just told the truth. The emails. The journal. The attempted custody. The court-mandated supervision. The way he vanished once the control was gone. I ended it with, he's not violent. He's not overt. But he is dangerous to anyone who challenges his version of reality. I never heard back. But I noticed a month later, Lucian never listed that job on his LinkedIn. Time passed. I moved out of Mia's place. I found a rental home with big windows and a little yard where Isla could toddle through the grass in summer. Every wall in that house was hung with photos of our life now. Joyful, messy, authentic. And in the center of it all, I framed that email, the one he sent to the lawyer. The one that said I was mentally unstable. Not out of spite. But because it reminds me who I used to be. And how far I've come. Isla turned 3 last week. She asked me, "Where's Daddy?" I paused. Thought about it. "He's someone I used to know," I said. She nodded, satisfied. Then ran back to her puzzle. There's no need for fireworks or grand takedowns. No final confrontation. No scene where he begs me back and I slam the door in his face. This was the revenge, living fully. Thriving loudly. Becoming unerasable. He thought I was unstable. But I was evolving. He tried to write me out of the story. But I took the pen back. And I wrote a better one.